Before the break, we promised you two absolutely huge games coming out in May, and there's no way we could talk about May without including Prey. This new game from Bethesda is absolutely not your average first-person shooter. It takes place in the year 2032 on a space station orbiting the moon. It's a space station that also just so happens to be overrun by hostile aliens. Luckily, you're the subject of an experiment that has left you with special abilities that will help you survive. Luckily. Intrigued? Yeah, me too. Watch this.
We are here at Arkane Studios in Austin, Texas to talk about the brand new game Prey, and I'm joined by Raph. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Welcome.
So tell me a little bit, for anybody that doesn't know, about the philosophy of Arkane Studios and how you think that makes Prey a great game for Arkane to develop.
So Arkane Studios started in '99, so we've been doing games for a while now, and we always specialize in first-person games with depth. Some people call them immersive sims.
So obviously, in the past, the Dishonored games are ones that people might have played and know very well already. And how are you bringing the philosophies that your studio has put into those games to the Prey series now?
You know, having done those games for a while now, and Dishonored was one of them, where you could experience all those tools that we give to the player, and they have all those ways they can express themselves and be creative about how they play. We've developed this philosophy that we're taking into Prey. It's a different context. Now it's you're on board of a space station. There are some variety of weapons and tools. Not so many weapons actually. A lot of the tools become weapons for the player, and also there are superpowers that you can acquire from the enemies, the aliens that are infesting this space station actually.
Definitely a first-person shooter, but by no means an average first-person shooter. The gameplay is going to be a little bit different than we might be used to, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a first-person shooter where you have a lot of options on the way you want to play. So people that are a little more indirect and a little more into exploration will have an opportunity to play this way, and maybe use pervert some of our systems into their own advantage so that they can find their own way to play. Some people that are more direct will actually focus on the RPG branch of the pure shooter, so they will enjoy the game like a more traditional shooter.
So it sort of lets you play the way you choose to.
It's really lets you play the way you choose to.
I love it. So you've intrigued me now. We're in space, we're on a space station, we're fighting aliens. Tell me a little bit about the story of Prey. Where does it take place? When does it take place?
So it takes place in a version of Earth that is not exactly our Earth. It's in our story, Kennedy actually survived the assassination. So, and as we know, he was very inclined towards space exploration, and so we imagine our world in 2032, how it would be in this context, and so things are very familiar but a little different, and so you can even tell by the visual design that the influence of this era, the 70s, etc., that has progressed to the year 32, but in its own way, in a way that people will recognize that it's not exactly our Earth. And so that was important to us because we like to take players to different places of the world so that they can actually feel somewhere else. And so you're in the future, you are part of an experiment, and then something happens. Everything goes wrong basically, and you find yourself trapped in this space station, infested with aliens. You have a wrench, and then you find some guns, and then that's it. That's how it starts.
Sounds like a great start to me. So Morgan Yu is our main character, right? And from what I understand, the player has some choices to decide who Morgan is in their game. Can you tell me a little about that?
Yes, it's one of the themes, it's one of the drive. If you think in terms of player motive, that game, the first level of player motive is going to be to escape that place because it's hostile and you just want to survive. So that's clear, simple objective. Then there's a second one, which is, who am I exactly? Why am I here? What did people want from me? And so there's a lot of twists in that aspect of the story, because you're going to find out that maybe you're not exactly who you think you are, and that there's a big notion of what is identity exactly.
Interesting. And you can even choose whether the Morgan in your game is male or female, correct?
Correct. As part of our desire to have the players identify with the character as much as possible, we give the options at first to choose female or male character. And because the idea is that we don't really have there's a background for the character, but there's not really a personality, and that's deliberate so that the player can identify himself as much as possible.
That really pulls the player into the game, lets them identify with their character. All right, so Morgan in the game has undergone some experiments that has given the player some special abilities. Tell me a little bit about those abilities if you can.
Yeah, so those abilities come directly from the aliens themselves, because there is a device in the station. There's actually a technology to extract the powers from those aliens and apply them on humans, specifically you. And so they have anything they do, you can do. And quickly enough, you figure out that some aliens can turn into objects, for example, and so you can turn into objects. That's one example. Some duplicate and shift forward or backward, and so at some point you can get this power as well. Leave a duplicate of yourself and shift in a direction. This creates some sort of a decoy, so it's all integrated into gameplay, of course. That's in service of a fun gameplay.
So you can sort of take all those abilities and incorporate them with the tools and weapons that you find, and you really shape the combat the way you want it as you play through then.
Yeah, totally. And there you won't be able to, in one playthrough, you won't be able to acquire all the powers and all the abilities. So it's really up to how you want your character to evolve for a specific playthrough. And then you may want to play a second time and then try something totally different.
I love that. All right, so we're talking about combat. In the game, who are we fighting? Tell me a little bit about our enemy here.
So our enemy is deliberately not very defined at first. It's called a typhon, but at first you don't know much about the enemy, and then you realize it's actually there's an ecology of aliens. Like the first one you encounter is this mimic, which turn into things. It's a scout, part of the ecology, but there's a bigger purpose behind all that. And as you make progress in the game, you're going to learn exactly what they want, why they're here, even though it's going to take a lot of peeling of the layers of the story of the station to find out.
Well, I personally can't wait to get my hands on the game. Everything I've seen, very intriguing, looks great, and everything that you've talked about looks fantastic. Tell us, when can we get it and what platforms will it be available for?
So Prey ships May 5th, 2017, and it's on PC, PS4, and Xbox One.
There you go. Thank you so much for joining us today, Raph. Make sure you pick up Prey on May 5th.